Yeah.
Whether it's even true or not, that seems to be the go-to scenario now that they, So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's, yeah, I mean, I think they claim that, and the gal, where was it? The teenage girl, she was like 16 years old or something, sitting in a car with her friends, and the cops pulled up and just opened fire on her through the driver's side window, just shot her to pieces, sitting in the driver's seat of her car. And I think that on that one they claimed that she was going for the gun, which was like contradicted by the circumstances and by the witnesses. But that seems to be all they have to say, and it all gets swept under the rug. The people will get out there and protest for a week or so, and then something else happens, and everyone moves on.
Yeah, and I saw your post. You were saying that maybe they're doing this to desensitize us, and to make us frightened. Maybe they are. We don't, what I mean? Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, it's got to have a certain chilling effect on people to see that, this going on, how commonplace it's become, and how blatant it can be, and yet still, the cops are backed by the department and no charges are filed, and,
And a lot of people support them.
There's never,
A lot of people.
And the other cops around the country see that too, I mean, they're seeing that they can get away with anything.
And people will post on Facebook, well, thank God for the police are there to protect us. They have they may not come home tonight. All this crap, Hey.
I know, yeah. Yeah, there's anytime anyone, that they pop up on YouTube or Facebook, there's always strings of comments from people saying, I don't understand why people just can't respect the authority of the police and follow directions.
Right.
And none of this would happen. All the guy had to do was follow the orders. And, like, wow, man. It's scary. It's really, we're being driven more and more into to just, wholeheartedly supporting the police state and even embracing it, It's, it's a scary world.
It is.
None of which has much to do with the moon landing. But
And speaking of world, okay, I'll segue into it. Yeah, because we like to do shows on here, covering historical events and to put them in perspective. And it seems like the moon hoax, which I think just about everybody will agree it's a hoax, especially I've been watching stuff, preparing for the show for the past 48 hours. But it seems like that was kind of the start of this whole thing of the government pulling stuff over on us and being able to get away with it in a really large way. Because the cover-up with the moon hoax is just as bad as the cover-up with these police shootings and this Boston bombing thing.
Yeah, it is pretty extraordinary that they were able to pull such a massive hoax, at such an early stage, technologically speaking. We were pretty primitive back in the 60s, and just with the use of 1960s technology to be able to successfully pull that off and then to keep it in place for 45, 46 years later. To still keep that propped up there is pretty extraordinary, and that had to be emboldening to a large extent, to realize that they could pull off such a massive hoax, and that wasn't even all that well constructed, and yet, I mean, it really speaks to the power of the media and the power of voices of authority and people's willingness to want to, to believe that that they're not being lied to, and
they want to believe in heroes. They want to have heroes. They want to believe we're the good guys. The Russians are the bad guys. And meanwhile, NASA was run by a bunch of Nazis, and Jack Parsons, this Satan worshipping occultist.
But people don't want to believe that either.
Of course
they want to keep. They want to keep their sanitized view of America, and and this great accomplishment that we made in the 60s, which just one of many great accomplishments, and people want to believe. I mean, we're indoctrinated from birth to believe that we live in this exceptional society that's just light years beyond any other civilization that has ever existed. We're just better in every way, and And people want to believe that, you know, they really want to believe that we are the special ones, you know, and that our leaders mean well, and, you know, that the media and academia and the legal community and everyone else isn't just blatantly lying to them. You know,
it's funny too, because as soon as you go to Europe the first time, or South America, or something, and you meet people from other countries, and they just got that smile on their face, like, "Hey, dude, you're such a fool. You believe you Americans think you're the center of the universe, you know."
Yeah, we think that we're the most well informed because we honestly believe that we have the freest, the most independent media apparatus that's ever existed, you know, and we routinely demonize, you know, the media in you know, countries that are in opposition to us, you know, and praise our own. And I mean, for years, you know, for decades, we've all been sold the notion that we alone in the world get the true and accurate news, you know, because we have, and by all appearances, you know, I mean, we do have this huge, you know, supposedly independent, you know, media, this, you know, massive media conglomerate with, you know, hundreds of TV stations and radio stations and newspapers and magazines and podcasts and you know, just unlimited options for where we get our news. And, you know, so it certainly appears that we do, in fact, have, you know, unlimited choices and you know, access to, you know, truthful, you know, unfiltered news stories. But, you know, the reality is something very much different. But again, that's something that people don't really want to believe, don't really want to accept.
Now, along those lines, I think there's pretty much two camps. There's one camp that says, hey, we never went to the moon because it's impossible. The Van Allen belt, all that stuff. And then there's the other side that says, well, we have these secret space programs, and we've been to the moon way back in the 50s. Where do you fall in on that? We can't do it, it's impossible, or we have a secret space program?
I think it's we can't do it, you know, and I think there's actually probably more than two camps, you know. There's one camp that says that we've never done it and it probably can't be done. There's another camp that says that the early missions were faked because we weren't ready yet and we wanted to make a show of beating Russia there, but that the later missions were successful. You know, and then of course there's the camp that says that all of them were successful and the whole thing was legit.
Right.
And I pretty much fall into the there's absolutely no way it could have been done in the 1960s, and I don't believe. Well, NASA has acknowledged that it can't be done today, and whether it can ever be done, whether it's within the realm of what we as humans are even capable of, is highly questionable. But yeah, I mean, there's people that claim not only did we make it to the moon, but that we've made it to Mars, and that we have secret outposts on the moon and on Mars, and you know, various other places. And then there's those that claim that we made it to the moon and were confronted by hostile aliens and warned away, and that's why we've never gone back, because we were told to stay away from the moon and mind our own business. You know, so there's quite a few camps actually. In regards to the various space programs.
It's almost like a jamboree. So many camps. Oh, my God. Okay, so then lay out your case, man. Okay, we can't do it because it was impossible. So give us an idea. Give us some clues and hints and stuff.
Well, you know, one of the most amazing things about it to me is that if you really read between the lines of various NASA press releases and releases from their various contractors, they've basically acknowledged numerous times that we haven't been to the moon. You know, not in so many words, but they'll talk about, you know, a return mission and what it will require. And, you know, various times they have said that, you know, before we can, quote unquote, go back to the moon, we have to develop a new spacesuit material, because none of the materials that we currently have would withstand the environmental extremes on the moon, the temperature fluctuations and whatnot. And, yet supposedly we had a material that worked perfectly fine in 1969, so there's a huge, there's a huge problem there.
Yeah, you're right, because the temperature, the heat on the moon gets up to 250 degrees, which is boiling water. We don't have any suits on Earth that we can put on and jump in boiling water. We don't have them.
Well, they've acknowledged that.
Yeah.
They've said that, we need to develop some type of a radiation shield, not just for the spaceships, but for while they're on the moon and working on the moon. And they've, put out artist renditions of these elaborate, shields that would have to be constructed on the surface of the moon in order for our astronauts to stay there for any length of time and work there. And, we didn't have any of that in 1969, but now we need it, and they say, if we were to send back a rover now, it would have to be launched in a separate launch vehicle, it would require a completely separate launch, whereas in 1969, we had no problem stowing 3 astronauts in a dune buggy on the, the landing craft. And, they've talked about problems with re-entry that have to be worked out. They've talked about how the lunar dust would be a huge problem, and that they'd have to develop all new technology to maintain a completely dust-free environment inside the landing vehicle. They've talked about these special ports where the astronauts would actually pass sort of where the suits would dock to the outside of the craft with these special portals where they would sort of back into the suits, through the crafts, and then to get back into the craft, they'd have to sort of reverse that procedure so that the spacesuits never came into the landing craft, because They say the lunar dust would just be a huge problem health-wise for the astronauts and for all the delicate electronics and mechanical parts on the, that it would wreak havoc. And yet you had these guys going out in dune buggies, kicking up whole rooster tails full of dust, in these videos, and then tromping back into the landing vehicle just literally covered with dust. And
then
no problem.
Then you go into zero gravity. That dust is going to be
everywhere.
Thick in the air, in your eyes. It's going to be in your eyes. There's no way you can.
That thing is going to be like a snow globe full.
Right.
And they've acknowledged that. Right. They've acknowledged that would happen now, but apparently in 1969 there was a different laws of physics involved or something, because we had no problem, and. So, there's a whole list of these specific problems that NASA has identified that are now problems, but that we had apparently had easy solutions for in 1969. And yet now, with almost 50 years of technological advancement under our belts, we're saying that we don't have the technology for it, So there's obviously a huge disconnect there.
Yeah, it is just so hysterical. Some of these, and like you said, even when I was a kid, the thing with the lunar rover thing, even I could see then when I was 10 years old, I could say, well, how'd they get that thing in and out? How'd they? Yeah.
I know, because the first missions they could barely get the 2 astronauts in there. These things were supposed to be, just designed for just a bare minimum of space, enough to hold 2 astronauts. It couldn't even hold the 3rd astronaut. He had to stay up in the command module while the other 2 went down and did their thing. And yet, after the first few flights, all of a sudden, with no changes whatsoever to the launch vehicle or the landing craft, all of a sudden they had dune buggies on board.
Wait, and those things cost $60 million a piece.
These full-size dune buggies that just miraculously made it to the moon, stowed in the astronauts carry-on bags or something. It's just it was just remarkable. And I mean, my interpretation of that is that they needed to add a little more excitement. It was getting kind of boring. It wasn't holding the people's attention